Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
Floyd D. Johnson is really a very special place in York County, South Carolina. It's a small rural community, but they have big ideas in this community. They think outside the box and they're not afraid to try things. Just one of the things I think that makes them special is they approached Duke Power and said, what do you need? With our kids coming out, what do you need? They needed line workers. So they partnered with Duke Power, and Duke Power gave them a truck. They set up the pools, and now they're training these students. And when they come out of FTJ, they can get a job with Duke Power as line workers. And that's the only school in South Carolina that does that.
Welcome back to the SREB Making Schools Work podcast, where we highlight great teachers and leaders across our region. And today we're very excited to talk with two leaders from Floyd Johnson Tech Center in South Carolina. This school is one of our Pacesetter schools. I want to welcome Angie Covington and Lee Green. Lee Green is the director of Floyd Johnson Tech Center, and Angie is a teacher at Floyd Johnson. And to introduce them, we have Marsha Moseley. Marsha, how are you today?
Good. Thank you, Daniel. I hope you're well.
I'm great. So you've worked with this school for several years. And didn't they have some major increases in completers this year?
They did. So they've done three things really well as we go into this conversation. First of all, they were brave enough to look at their data and look at their data realistically and move it from a printed page onto a wall where they are watching every student and every student's progress to make sure that those students are completing. Second thing they did is they implemented student learning objectives around the SREB science improvement model. They focused on how do we take this data room, this data that we have, and how do we act on it so that it becomes useful. And it becomes useful in a personalized way to the teacher that will then impact the student. And then the third thing that we've just worked on this year are looking at the 10 key practices for technology centers. And they went through a 2-day process of rating themselves, scoring themselves. And where are we doing well? Where's that low-hanging fruit that we're doing well and that we can even stretch ourselves on? And then where do we really, really need those heavy-duty stretches, and where are we going to prioritize for next year and going forward? So when we come out of those meetings, they've got a 3 to 5 year plan for their school improvement plan that the state requires all districts to have.
So Marsha, I want you to tell us about what kind of measurable achievement they've had.
Can I throw this out there before Marsha jump in on this? I just want to give you a couple of numbers. One, the first number that we're really proud of is the number of completers that we've had to come through Floyd D. Johnson and complete a program with the certification. Before we got with SREB in 2022, we had 169 completers. We increased that to 194 last school year. But what's most impressive about that number is that we did that with the decline in student population. So in 2022, we had 1,600 kids that were enrolled at York Comprehensive High School. And last year, we had 1,400 kids that were enrolled. So even though they had a 14% increase, we were able to turn that around into a 15% increase in the number of completers we had with a smaller student population.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about credentials?
The credentials, the number of students that earn credentials, we had a 51% increase from 2022 to 2025, from 408 to 836. That's total number of students. Another number that I feel is impressive is the number of students that are participating in our career and technical education organization, CTSOs. We had only 104 students in 2022 before we met SREB. Now we have 350 of our students participating as CTSOs. And I'll tell you why that's important to us. Every child needs a tribe to belong to. And that club and organization provides that for our students. Every student is not going to be a football player or a basketball player or in the band. But these CTSOs provide a space for our children. They provide the skills that they need, the leadership skills that they learn through CTSOs. It gives them an opportunity to showcase their skills when they go out and compete at the state and national levels. So when we start looking at those numbers, when we start this process, that's what I'm most proud of, is the increase in the numbers of student activity.
Well, I hope by the end of this episode, we can understand how you got there and what are the key steps you've taken. And as a proud father of a TSA vice president, I can totally agree with what you're saying. Angie, tell us what you teach there.
I teach pre-engineering and advanced manufacturing, which is really mechatronics and manufacturing.
Okay. And Lee, you are the executive director. How long have you been at that school?
Yes, sir. First off, thank y'all for having us on today. This is going into my 8th year as director at Floyd D. Johnson. But it's really my 12th year because I was here before as a teacher. This is where I got my start as a teacher 28 years ago.
Okay. And what did you teach?
I taught business education classes.
So you are a longtime tech CTE educator.
Yes, sir. 25 years out of 28, I've been in CTE.
So tell us a little bit about Floyd Johnson Tech Center for people who don't know about it. What makes it a special place to work at and to go to school?
That's an easy question to answer. What makes it a special place is the people that are here. Well, first of all, we are a small community. We have 1,500 kids that attend high school here in York, South Carolina. We're one high school, one technology center town. So this is an environment where everybody knows each other. I'm in a unique position where I've been here so long that I'm seeing some of the grandkids of folks that I taught back in the day come through the school. And so it's a beautiful thing. And it's a lovely community. And that's what makes it special. We're just one big family. Everybody knows each other's family and we care about each other.
So you're attached to a high school, but you're your own center. And so tell us a little bit about the sort of relationship between your high school and the center and how many students in each.
So our partner school is York Comprehensive High School. And York Comprehensive High School has roughly a little over 1,500 students enrolled there. And we're unique because we're on the same campus. The only thing that separates us from York Comprehensive High School is a door. And so of the 1,500 students, we get roughly a little over 1,200 students that take the CTE classes here at Floyd D. Johnson. So that's of the 300 kids that do not come here, they're probably band students or athletes or something that couldn't work it into their schedule to take a class down here. So the way we schedule in the proximity of the school, it makes it easy for our students to have good access, to have equal access to all our programs here.
So looking back over the last 3 to 4 years, what are some of the big shifts that you've tried to bring as a staff and as a leadership team to Floyd? And what inspired you to make those shifts?
Well, when I first came here as a director 8 years ago, it's easy to walk into a place and observe some classrooms and see that that the people here are doing a good job. But when I looked at the metrics, the things that we're measured on, like Perkins report, and all the other data from the State Department, it seemed like that it wasn't a true reflection of what we were doing. So one of the first things, and this is something that's been instilled in me since day one, is you got to have accurate data. You got to have good, clean data so that you know where you are. You have a good benchmark of where you are. That way you can determine where you're going to go. And I felt like we wasn't recording our data accurately. And so that's when we embarked on the first initiative that we had, which was, how do we clean this data up? How do I train my people the importance of accurately reporting what's going on in that classroom so that we can accurately report to the State Department. So that's one of the first initiatives we've started working on. And Miss Moseley, Dr. Moseley came in, bless her heart, and helped us with that. She introduced us to the idea of the data wall as one good way of recording data. And the reason I say bless her heart, we had some arguments. We kind of didn't buy into it at first. But we, after some arguing and just working with each other, we decided that, we want the things that we want to measure on this data card. We want to look at, of course, the students, what grade level they're in. We want to look at what classes they have taken. We want to look at the certifications they have earned. And if they had passed, all the other career readiness assessments that we were given. So those are the things that we want to look at. So, and Marsha's taught us how to organize it in such a way and to create a data wall out of it. Something that our teachers can look at and see where their students were or are going.
Marsha?
So can I jump in?
Okay.
And Lee's using the word argue, but I like to think of it as we were stretching each other, because I'd put together many data rooms, but I'd never put together a data room with a CTE center. And so it was challenging for both of us to figure out how we were going to help teachers see data. I've always said teachers didn't go into education to crunch numbers necessarily, but they care about students. But we have to make data come off the page, come off just that one-dimensional page, and be three-dimensional so that you're really using data in real time and to watch the trajectory of the student so you can act on it. It's not post-mortem, but you're acting on it before you get to the end. You can see where the kids are going. And that was a struggle for us.
What was the gap between what the data that you wanted to see and the data that you were actually looking at that you say it wasn't clean? Can you describe that a little bit? Like, what does that mean?
Oh, sure. So the data that we want to look at, let's take, for example, completers. And when we talk about completers, we're talking about students that complete 3 or 4, depending on the program, courses in a particular pathway. And then we have the idea of being career ready, breathing down our neck, I guess you could say. And so we have to take into account the certification that the students have. So, for example, when we first started and we looked at it, I was like, I feel like we have more than just 150 or whatever completers that we've had come through our program. So we were not capturing our completers accurately. Plus, we were finding that there were a lot of students that were just a class or two away from being a completer. And they were just slipping through the cracks. And so what we found out, it was a long process. Believe me, it was a long, hard process. We started by looking at each individual student's 11th and 12th graders transcript, looking at the CTE classes that they took. And then on the data card, we would record those classes and determine what pathway they were on. And then we would look at it and see, okay, if they need one class, how are we going to get this kid this class to be a completer? And the first time we did it, we looked at the senior class. So that means we really had one semester to work with to get those kids what they need to be a completer. And it was no fault of our guidance department or anybody. It was just the fact that we were not paying close enough attention to what our kids were taking and what pathways. And it really wasn't an emphasis put on that prior to us, coming back here.
It sounds like the aha moment was when you realized you knew what you didn't know. Like sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right. But then you realized what you didn't know. And the question was, how do we see it? How do I see what I don't know? Which is what are they completing? And there's students out there who are one class away from completing, but before you could see the data on the wall, you didn't know that. So, and the kids aren't like, they're just taking the classes necessarily. They're not necessarily as responsible as we want them to be. Angie,
Yes.
can you tell me as a teacher how having this information out there on this data wall impacted you as an instructor?
Well, I think it was very powerful because then the teachers became a little more hyper aware of the students in our classroom. I get to see the data wall every single day. And one of my favorite parts of the cards that Dr. Green, Shannon, and Marsha created was that they do have the picture of the student. So like Marsha was saying earlier, they're not just pieces of data. These are human beings that we are trying to assure that they are going to be successful in their lives. That's not just a student number out there. Mm-hmm. But when we sat down and looked at it and realized, I think we had one student, as Dr. Green mentioned before, he was taking the class because he liked the teacher. And he had taken the same class 3 times. And that's great. And I'm glad that you love your teacher. Well, had Dr. Green and Marsha and Shannon not done this work, that kid would have took the class probably a 4th time.
Yeah. Did you ever take students into the room and look at their card with them? Just like your kids in your programs, right? Who are in mechatronics, and use it as a sort of conference and a way to talk about what they're doing? I know you're not their counselor, but they're in your program, so you might want to. Did it ever help you?
Yes, I took a few since the copy machine is right there. I would make copies of them, and I always tell my students, please come see me before you have your IGP meeting.
Which stands for? IGP stands for?
Individual Graduation Plan.
Okay.
The guidance counselor, and I would tell them, come see me first. I want you to be a completer in my program. You have to make sure that you are asking for the correct classes from the guidance counselor. And the cards also contain information for industry credentials. So then I can also see you need certain credentials in order to be college and career ready. Because in the state of South Carolina, our students are required to have industry credentials. And so all of that information is right there. And having it ready for us that we can see every single day is very powerful.
So for our listeners, let's just review again what's on the card. Tell us again we got the name, we got the picture. What else?
You got the pathway of the child, the courses that they completed, and the courses that they need to complete the pathway, and also the credential. And we also put on the ASVAB, which is part of being career ready, and WIN scores, which is our state career readiness test. So we have all the metrics on there that would require a child to be career ready.
So if I was listening to this, one thought I would have is, well, why do I need a wall? I can use a million different web tools on my laptop, and I can go click and it'll pop up and it'll have all that information. Why are we going analog here when we could go digital?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in now too, Lee, and then I'll let you.
I'm sure this topic never came up in conversation, right?
So here's the thing. Yes, all of that information is in a spreadsheet somewhere, but teachers never have the time or just the chance to sit down and delve through that at the depth that they need to. Whereas if you have a data room, and as Angie said, you are in there all the time for meetings, or their copiers in the room as well. If you're in there all the time, you are looking at the face of the children that sit in your chairs every single day. So it is removing it from a one-dimensional page to a three-dimensional, and we're always moving those cards. And if you're always moving cards as children, complete an interim or complete a semester or whatever, those walls are action-oriented. They're not a data display. They are functional data walls that are moved and manipulated. And as Angie said, it's powerful and it makes people care. And that's what you need is people to care, because when people care, they act.
Right. And it's the human aspect to it. When they come in, when those teachers come into that room and see those beaming little faces on those cards, that adds the human aspect to it. And they really, I think, pay more attention to what's going on. Sure, we can give them a spreadsheet, which we did before the data wall. But
No,
I don't think
still
they
had those kids
no
taking 3
impact.
classes for the teacher they like.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And let me add this, by going through the transcripts and creating a data wall, we did find those kids that were, let's say, one class short. This is his senior year. That he's one class short for being a completer in a firefight. So what we did, we created a list of all those things. And if you look at the data wall, it reflects it. We have the data wall divided into 3 colors, red, yellow, and green. Of course, reds are those students that really have no chance of being a completer here and becoming career ready for various reasons. Yellow, they're maybe one thing shy of being a completer. Like they may need to get a credential or they may need to get a class. So those students, we created a spreadsheet that we sent the guidance where, okay, and we talked to these kids a lot on one-on-one, too, before we sent it to guidance. But, this is what this child needs to be a completer. Please help us place them in such and such class kind of thing. And then the last section was the green section. We want all our children to get to the green section because they are done. They are college and career ready. They are ready for the world. So, but the yellow kids were the ones we really concentrated on. And by doing that, the following year, our completers increased. Every year we've been doing this process, it has increased. We went from the first year, kids completing, not really concentrating on being a double completer or completing 3 programs. This past year, we had 6 kids to complete 4 programs or more. Wow. That is a lot of time spent with us. And when you spend that much time in a career center, or it goes back to the caring aspect of it, when you spend that much time with a child, that relationship is built. And you know how important relationships are to educating a child. So we had quadruple completers. I never imagined that would happen. And then triple completers. You name it. We got kids that performing really well.
We have a saying with schools sometimes that people play different when they know the score. And what you've done is made sure that everybody knows the score. The kids know their score and you know the score for all these students. And when you know, okay, we've got 63 yellows and I know we can get that down to 30 by this date. People play different because that's a clear thing that they can get to. Mm-hmm. And you made that transparent to everybody.
And you've seen the school as a whole. That's right. The other thing. You don't see the bigger picture when you're just looking at your classes. You're looking at how the school is faring as a whole. Yeah. So that's really neat.
And so it's our kids, right? Collective efficacy. I want to shift a little bit, but it's connected because tell us about this year or the last year where you developed improvement cycles where each teacher set a goal for themselves. Talk about what you used to do and the changes that you made last year with your improvement processes for your teachers.
Okay. I'll take that one.
Well, I want you to talk about it, but then I want Angie to tell us what it was like and give us the experience.
Okay. Well, when we first got here, I think we made it too easy for them when we talk about doing a student learning objective. In South Carolina, a student learning objective is basically a teacher's goal for that year.
Okay.
And every teacher has to have one. So when we first started, we came up with a generic goal, which was to increase the number of completers in your program. And that was a generic goal, building wide. And so what we saw was, it was easy. It was achievable. Everybody wanted to increase it, but we had some teachers that I mean, they were having 30, 40 completers a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some programs that were having 1 or 2. And it just didn't really, I guess, resonate with some teachers. Some teachers just didn't take ownership into that goal, I guess. So when Marsha came along, we talked about, one of the things she wanted me to think about was, how do we take the stuff that was on the data wall and the data room? How do we take it from just being there to action? And so that's when she introduced us to the PDCA model. Did I say it right?
You did. And it's improvement science. So it's based on science.
Yes.
And research.
And stand for?
Plan, do, check, act. And that's an SREB tool that we use.
Some people might know it commonly as plan, do, study, act, do, check, act. Just our little twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a improvement science tool that has been used, a process for industry. I'm sure Angie knows, in industry for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about it. What was it? What does that mean?
For us, what that meant was, when she came in, we first had a workshop on data. I want them to be in the data room, immersed in it. I want our teachers, to see the data wall and look at their individual programs as the students in the data wall. Plus, we had data pulled from their programs from the State Department. And so I want them to look at just more than just a stack of papers in front of them. I want them to look at the data in front of them and pick out the areas that need improvement based on the data. And based on that, the next step was to create their SLO, or student learning objective, based on that. So each teacher had an individualized SLO when they went through the Plan, Do, Study Act. And they had a individualized SLO, and they took ownership of it. So, for example, like Angie's program, she doesn't have to worry about, her kids will come out with a certification. It's not a stretch for her to say, hey, I want my kids to have certifications, because they automatically do it. But some programs need to work on the certification piece. Some programs need to work on increasing the enrollment in their program. Some programs need to work on marketing. So it individualized the whole process and made it pertinent to what they needed in their program. And I think we've seen improvements in those areas that they chose, which in turn improves the whole building.
Angie, so tell us about your improvement journey. What was your goal? And then what did you plan? What was your P?
So at first I want to address like the teacher attitude, because a lot of times when your administration comes to you and says, hey, we're going to do this new thing, the first thing teachers think is, yay, I didn't have 50, but I loved that our PDs are useful first. The PDCA was very useful because it forced us to sit down and actually look. I had the information in front of me, and I knew my refinement area. Like, this is what I need to work on. And so how am I going to take that, build my SLO? And so, for lack of a better term, I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? I'm improving my program, and I'm also fulfilling my SLO requirement by the State Department of Education. So
it was helpful.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It was helpful because it was helping you do what you already had to do, give you a structure to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was very helpful. And I have to say, since with Marsha and working with Dr. Green and Shannon, our professional developments are very useful. I haven't found anything that's not. But I decided first, I looked at some areas of refinement that I needed to work on. And I wanted to really focus on the kids. What do they need when they leave me and they go out into this world, whether it be college or go to work? What are some skills that I need to give them that are going to be beneficial, not just for my classroom, but for anywhere? And so that was my plan was to look at where do my students need work? Where do they need help? So I chose giving, receiving constructive feedback because everybody needs that. No matter where you go, what you do, you need to be able to give positive, constructive feedback, and you need to be able to receive it and put it into, action. And so I sat down and created a plan that, well, how am I going to introduce this and communicate it and not just introduce it in the classroom as an assignment, but kind of sell it to the kids. Hey, you need this. You need this. And then I created an activity around it. They work in teams. They collaborate constantly. We had some negative examples. We had some positive examples. I also told them, I said, look, adults struggle with this. We do big time. And we need to fix this. This is an issue. So I said, if you can learn this here and practice it here, it's really going to help you later on. And we used a decision matrix to help them. And I think Marsha introduced us to a type of decision matrix in one of our professional developments. And so that kind of let me know that I was on the right road. I was on the right target. And then the kids had to show me. I had to see it. I want to see your interaction. I want to see you accept feedback and make improvements. And they were accepting feedback from each other, not me, from one another.
Right.
So I felt I have my students right now in this classroom that went through that class, and to watch them work as a team now, taking the skills that they learned through that process, they are collaborating and creating work cells out there right now as we speak, and they're doing a great job. I see that they're using the constructive feedback that we worked on last school year.
Now, do they then give you feedback on your feedback?
Yes.
So suddenly you're telling them about something they're doing, and they might say, actually, you could have started that with a positive, and yeah.
Yes.
You can create a monster there.
Yes. And I ask them for their feedback. Every project that we do now, I have them provide me with some self-reflection and feedback. And one of the questions that I put in their feedback or their reflection piece to me all the time is, if you were the teacher, how would you have done this?
Yeah.
What would you change? What would you add? And they cannot give me the standard IDK. I don't know. You have to give me feedback. And it has to be written in such a way that it's positive and not negative, and it's constructive.
There's so many fantastic practices that you're rolling into one there. Metacognition. The kids are thinking about their thinking. They are providing feedback. You're modeling reflective teaching, and you're getting feedback to help you be a better teacher. And they're seeing, themselves as learners, but also ownership of their learning, right? They have a right to voice how they learn. And the thing is, feedback is one of the most highly effective practices for learning. And, Marsha is one of our Hattie scholars, and she knows that, as an effect size, it's huge. And then I think the last part of what you said is soft skills. Like it's falling into those soft skills that they need for the place of work. So I think you hit that one out of the park, and it sounds like your kids appreciated it a lot.
I do change. They have inspired me to change some of the lessons.
Yeah.
And so I will always give them credit, because I have a student out there where I changed a lesson and I said, oh yeah, by the way, this was so-and-so's idea. And I changed it, and they're always like, so you did read it? I'm like, yeah, I think you're really good.
So the study part, so plan, do, check act. The check would be, is there a data set? Is it the decision matrix, or is it the informal feedback? Like, how are you checking to see if your change was an improvement?
I think it's all of those. I do look at their use of the decision matrix, because they're going to collaborate on projects that require big decisions to be made. And people are going to come in with some grandiose ideas, and they have to decide which one's the best. So I do look at the decision matrix, and I do look at the feedback piece are you communicating with me and your peers the way that we learned, a constructive manner, not a negative way? So it's a combination of both, really.
Yeah. Lee, can you give maybe a couple other examples of teachers who have used their SLO to really change what's happening in their classroom? Because, I mean, before you answer that, for 80% of our teachers out there, that experience of writing an objective is something you do during pre-planning because you have to and you put it away. And what I'm hearing is this was an actual practical thing. So can you give us some more examples of teachers who actually used it to make big changes?
One that jumps out at me right now, I have a firefighting instructor. First of all, Angie is an example of the type of teachers that we have here at Floyd D. Johnson. And you can see why she's one of our lead teachers, but she's just an example of our teachers. And so with that being said, I'm going to go talk about my firefighter instructor here. Mr. Laws, who's a practicing firefighter, he used to teach for the fire academy. And he's a, straight as an arrow, kind of cut and dry kind of guy. And so he's a very good teacher, but, when I first met him, he was like, well, there's nothing wrong with my program. We do everything, and they do get a lot of certification, and he does a lot of things for them. But when he went through this process, he realized that one of the things that was missing was that work-based learning, real world type aspect to it. He takes them out and they do work, a little bit with the fire departments here, with job shadowing opportunities and stuff. But he made him realize that he really need to get more apprenticeship and internship opportunities. So he went out and found, which is a big deal for this part of the world that we live in geographically. He got several students on with internships with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Fire Department, which is the largest fire department here in the region. Being Charlotte. And this is something he did on his own, really, because I was surprised when he said, hey, can you come to my room? I got some folks I need you to meet. And he had the fire commissioner or whatever from Charlotte-Mecklenburg down here. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a big deal right here. But him getting his students out there in the real world so they can easily make that seamless transition from high school to the workforce. Right. And more than likely, by these kids going through these internships and with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg, they're gonna hire them when they graduate.
Right.
So that's just so important. And the other one I want to talk about is, I shouldn't put them out there like this, but it's our automotive instructor. Just like many of our trade area instructors, they come straight from industry and they come in, they do their thing as far as teach, all the extra stuff that you want them to do, it's kind of difficult to get them to do. And I didn't realize the impact that what we were doing with the PDCA and all the other stuff had this impact on here. But we're actually sitting in a workshop when we're doing a self-assessment. And he said pretty much, and Marsha was in there. I don't know his exact words, but it was like, I have drunk the Kool-Aid. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? That's not a good thing to drink the Kool-Aid.
They drank the Kool-Aid. That didn't work out for those people who drank it.
No, it didn't work out for him. I'm kind of worried about it when he said that, but he's like, basically he was saying, I get it now. I get what you're doing. I get what we're doing. And I'm on board.
What do you think he got? What do you think it is that he got? What is that?
I think it was more than just the actual task that we were doing right then or what we have done. I think it's the mindset, the shift. The shift has finally hit him.
And that shift is, I'm just trying to get like a sort of a clear understanding of what is that shift that you want people to think about.
That when they come here, we're going to have high expectations for every one of our students. I do mean every one of our students. It doesn't matter academic level. It doesn't matter race, sex, whatever, that they're going to have great opportunities here that we're going to teach when they come to our classes, that they from bell to bell, they're going to learn in a variety of different ways. And that when they leave here, that they're going to be ready for the world.
And I'll add to that, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable through our data, right? And we're going to hold ourselves, like, it's not just words. It's something that we show.
The kids are loved too. I mean, I have to say that those students are known by name. They're not a number.
Right.
They really aren't. And that speaks highly of that family environment that not only exists within the teachers, but it filters down to the students.
So what are some of your next growth areas around the high schools that work key practices? You've been working on those. Is there a specific practice that the staff or the leadership is really digging into this year and learning about and trying to improve on?
I'm glad you mentioned that. You brought that up. So one of the things that we did this summer, we developed a school leadership team, and we have tried this before. But I guess we tried to develop a school leadership team before without a focus, I guess you could say. So Dr. Moseley has given us this focus. And so our school leadership team, we went through a workshop this summer, 2-day workshop where we looked at the 10 key practices for technology centers. It was sort of a self-assessment of what we do good and what we don't do so well. And to be honest with you, going into this, I never said this to Marsha, but I'm like, oh, we're going to knock this out of the park. We're the 2-time Gene Bottoms Pacesetter Award winner. We're going to knock this out of the park. Well, she told me to sit in the corner and be quiet during this whole process.
You too? I've been there.
Yeah. And being married, I had no problem with doing that.
Not at all.
Wanted him to listen to his teachers.
Yeah, and I did listen. And I might add, we're wanting to try to expand and bring in our partner school, York Comprehensive High School, with some things as far as SREB is concerned, and just build a better relationship. So we had a teacher, we just had one teacher that time, one teacher from New York High School that was on our school leadership team at the Technology Center. And we also had an instructional coach that works at the district office on our team also. So when we started looking at those 10 key practices, and I'm listening to the teachers being very honest and vulnerable with each other, to sit there and say, hey, yeah, especially the part when we talk about advisory committees, I could do a better job with my advisory committee. I haven't been as committed, or I've been going through the motions with creating my advisory committee. And I was like, you know what? It takes a big person to admit that there's a flaw in that. I mean, just hearing something that, the relationships they felt, the things that they could do to better provide guidance to our students, or the better relationships they could build with our guidance department at the high school. I mean, just hearing them talk about it and was very enlightening for me.
What was that experience like for you, Angie?
And first, I was a little reluctant, but then when I was like, you know what? We needed this. We needed it. And I felt very comfortable. I've always felt very comfortable. I know we use the term family and stuff a lot, but we really are. I feel comfortable. I know I can go to Lee and Shannon for anything. I know that, and I feel comfortable. But sometimes it's hard when you're sitting there and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and you have to take ownership of the things that you're not doing well. Like, what can I do better? But it was very refreshing. It was good. It's good. Very positive.
So what we're referring to, if people aren't familiar with it, is TCTW 10 key practices. On our podcast website, we'll post those practices, and we'll also post some pictures from your data wall.
Yes.
Marsha has shared some pictures that we can post up there, and people can get a sense of what that looks like. Marsha has some final words for us.
I just wanted to say, through all of this, and I think you get the sense of it, but they've gone through the productive struggle that we put students through and we expect students to go through. At every point, it was a productive struggle, but they pushed on. They had grit, they had determination, they persevered. And so they displayed the same soft skills, so to speak, that we want our students to. And I think that determination, that perseverance is one, those are the critical factors that help them stay the course. And to be able to be that pace setter school, not to give up and not to say, oh, this doesn't make sense. Or, they followed the process.
Excellent. Well, they're going for a three-peat, I believe. So we'll see in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll be looking out for you all. So thank you, Lee Green, Angie Covington, Marsha Moseley, our producer, Ashley Shaw. And thank you guys. And we can't wait to see all the great careers and students who come out of Floyd D. Johnson Technical Center.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.